I stood frozen in my sister's doorway, my husband's cardigan draped across her bed like a confession, and in that moment, 42 years of marriage shattered into 1,000 pieces I'd never be able to put back together. The betrayal wasn't just in what I saw, it was in realizing I'd been blind to it for months, maybe longer, while I smiled and played the perfect host to the two people I trusted most in this world. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps more people become aware of the reality of betrayal and finding strength when your world falls apart. Now let me tell you what really happened. My name is Margaret Chen, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 68 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the kind of marriage people envied. Bob and I met in college. He was studying engineering. I was getting my degree in library science. We married young at 26, full of dreams about the life we'd build together. And we did build a good life. We raised 2 wonderful children, bought a comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood, and settled into the kind of routine that feels like safety. Bob retired from his engineering firm 3 years ago, and I'd left my job as a school librarian around the same time. We were supposed to be enjoying our golden years together. Bob was never the overly romantic type, but he was steady, reliable. He took care of the yard, fixed things around the house, and we had our routines. Coffee together every morning, game shows in the evening, Sunday dinners with the kids when they could make it. It wasn't passionate, but it was comfortable. Or so I thought. My sister Linda is 4 years younger than me. She's always been the more adventurous one, the one who took risks while I played it safe. She'd been married twice, both times to men who couldn't handle her independent spirit, or so she always said. When her second marriage fell apart last spring, she called me crying at 2 in the morning. "Maggie, I have nowhere to go," she sobbed. "David cleared out our bank account and I can't afford the rent on my own." Of course, I told her she could stay with us. That's what family does, right? Bob wasn't thrilled about it at first. He liked his quiet, his routine, his space. But I reminded him that Linda had been there for us when his mother was sick. That family comes first. "It'll just be for a few weeks," I promised him. "Just until she gets back on her feet." Linda moved into our guest room that following weekend. She arrived with 5 suitcases, a broken heart, and a determination to start fresh. I was happy to help her. After our parents died, Mom 10 years ago, Dad 7 years ago, Linda and I only had each other. We'd grown closer over the years, and I liked the idea of having her around. Those first few weeks were actually nice. Linda and I would have coffee in the mornings after Bob went to the hardware store or the gym. We'd watch old movies together, cook elaborate dinners, laugh about our childhood memories. It felt like being young again, before marriages and mortgages and all the weight of adult life. Bob seemed to adjust too. He started being more helpful than usual, carrying Linda's groceries, fixing the loose handle on her bedroom door, even helping her set up her new laptop. I thought it was sweet. I told Linda how lucky she was to have a brother-in-law who cared. She smiled at me and said, "You really did marry a good man, Maggie." I'm almost jealous. I should have heard the warning in those words, but I didn't. I just laughed and poured us more wine. The weeks turned into months. Linda got a part-time job at a boutique downtown, but she was still with us. The rent was too high everywhere, she said. She needed to save more money. And honestly, I didn't mind. The house felt less empty with her there. But small things started to change. Bob began taking evening walks, something he'd never done before. "Doctor says I need more exercise," he'd say, kissing my cheek before heading out. He'd be gone for an hour, sometimes longer, and come back smelling like fresh air and something else I couldn't quite place. Linda started wearing perfume. Not just any perfume, but a specific scent, jasmine and vanilla. It was the same perfume I used to wear when Bob and I were dating, the one he'd always said drove him crazy. When I mentioned it, Linda just shrugged. "I found it at a discount store. You like it?" I did like it. But something about seeing her wear it made me uneasy in a way I couldn't explain. Then there were the whispers. I'd walk into the kitchen and find Bob and Linda talking in low voices. They'd stop the moment they saw me, smiling too brightly, changing the subject too quickly. Once, I came home early from my book club and heard laughter coming from the den. Bob's deep rumble and Linda's musical giggle. When I walked in, they were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, but there was something in the air, something charged, that made me feel like an intruder in my own home. We were just watching a comedy, Bob explained, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. I started noticing other things too. Bob's reading glasses, which he usually kept on his nightstand, went missing. I can't find them anywhere, he muttered, searching through drawers. A week later, his favorite watch, the one I'd given him for our 30th anniversary, also disappeared. Then his grey cardigan, the soft cashmere one he wore around the house on cool evenings. I'm losing my mind, he said, frustrated. Things just keep vanishing. I helped him look, of course. I searched everywhere, but we never found them. My friend Grace started noticing changes too. Grace Martinez has been my neighbor and best friend for 20 years. She's a retired nurse, sharp as a tack, and doesn't sugarcoat anything. One afternoon, she came over for tea and caught sight of Linda and Bob in the backyard. They were looking at something on Bob's phone, standing close, their shoulders almost touching. Grace raised an eyebrow. How long has your sister been staying with you now? About 5 months, I said. Why? Just wondering. She sipped her tea, her dark eyes thoughtful. They seem pretty chummy. I felt defensive immediately. Grace, that's my sister and my husband. Of course they get along. I'm not saying they don't. She set down her cup carefully. I'm just saying, keep your eyes open, honey. Sometimes the people closest to us are the hardest ones to see clearly. I dismissed her concerns. Grace could be paranoid sometimes, seeing drama where there wasn't any. But her words planted a seed of doubt that I couldn't quite shake. Last Tuesday, everything changed. Last Tuesday started like any other day. Bob left early for his weekly golf game with his old co-workers. Linda had the day off from the boutique and was planning to meet a friend for lunch. I had the house to myself, which was rare these days, and I was looking forward to the quiet. I spent the morning cleaning, something that always helped me think. I vacuumed the living room, dusted the bookshelves, and decided to tackle the upstairs bathrooms. I gathered fresh towels from the linen closet, the good ones with the embroidered edges that I saved for guests. Linda had mentioned the night before that her bathroom towels were getting worn. I'll bring you fresh ones tomorrow, I'd promised. So there I was, carrying a stack of fluffy blue towels down the hallway to the guest room. I knocked first, out of habit and respect for privacy. No answer. Linda had already left for her lunch date. I turned the knob and pushed the door open. The room still smelled like her, that jasmine and vanilla perfume mixed with something else. Her bed was unmade, clothes draped over the chair in the corner. Linda had never been the neat one. I set the towels on the dresser and was about to leave when I noticed her closet door was slightly ajar. I don't know what made me look. Maybe it was Grace's words echoing in my head. Maybe it was all those small, strange moments that had been piling up like stones in my chest. Or maybe it was just instinct, that animal sense that tells you when something is wrong even before your brain catches up. I walked to the closet and opened the door wider. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. There, on the top shelf, partially hidden behind a shoebox, was a grey bundle of fabric. I reached up and pulled it down. Bob's cardigan, the soft cashmere one that had been missing. For 3 weeks, my hands started shaking. There had to be an explanation. Maybe Linda had borrowed it. Maybe she'd found it somewhere and forgot to mention it. I set it on the bed and looked back into the closet. That's when I saw them. Bob's reading glasses, tucked into a small wicker basket on the shelf. His anniversary watch, coiled carefully on top of a folded scarf. And there, hanging on a hook on the inside of the closet door, was his favorite flannel shirt. The one he wore on weekend mornings, the one that smelled like his aftershave and coffee. I stood there, frozen, as the room tilted around me. My vision blurred and my chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped iron bands around my ribs and was pulling them tighter and tighter. This wasn't an accident. These things weren't here by chance. They'd been hidden. Carefully, deliberately, I sank onto Linda's bed, still clutching Bob's cardigan. The fabric was soft against my fingers, worn from years of wear. I'd given him this sweater for Christmas 7 years ago. He loved it so much he wore it constantly around the house. And now it was here in my sister's room, hidden away like a secret. My mind raced through the past 6 months, replaying every moment with new eyes. Bob's evening walks, Linda's perfume, the whispered conversations. The way they'd look at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. The times I'd come home to find them laughing together, sitting too close, touching too casually. How could I have been so blind? I thought about all the times I defended them to myself, explained away the little things that didn't add up. Bob was just being helpful. Linda was just being friendly. They were family. Family didn't do this. But the evidence was right here in my hands. And evidence doesn't lie. I don't know how long I sat there. It could have been minutes or hours. Time felt strange, elastic. Part of me wanted to storm out, to wait for them to come home and confront them immediately. But another part, the part that had kept me safe and careful for 68 years, told me to be smart about this. I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. The cardigan folded on the shelf, the glasses in the basket, the watch on the scarf, the flannel shirt on the hook. My hands were steady now, moving with mechanical precision. I was running on autopilot, my emotions locked away somewhere I couldn't access them yet. I left the fresh towels on Linda's dresser like nothing had happened, closed the door behind me, and walked downstairs on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Grace. I needed to call Grace. I picked up my phone and dialed with trembling fingers. She answered on the second ring. "What's wrong, you sound? Can you come over?" My voice cracked. "Please. Right now." "I'm already putting on my shoes," she said without hesitation. "I'll be there in 2 minutes." Grace lived 3 houses down. True to her word, she was knocking on my door 90 seconds later. I let her in, and the moment I saw her face, concerned, caring, ready to help, something inside me broke. I started crying, but huge, gulping sobs that shook my whole body. Grace wrapped her arms around me and guided me to the couch. "Breathe, honey," she said firmly. "Just breathe. Whatever it is, we'll handle it." When I could finally speak, I told her everything. About the clothes in Linda's closet. About the months of strange behavior. About how stupid and naive I'd been. Grace listened without interrupting, her jaw getting tighter with every word. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. She finally said, "And your sister?" "I'm so sorry, Maggie. I'm so sorry. What do I do?" I whispered. "Grace, what do I do?" She took my hands in hers. "First, you stop blaming yourself. You're not stupid or naive. You trusted people you loved. That's not a character flaw. It's what makes you human. They're the ones who should be ashamed, not you. But how could I not see it? Because you didn't want to see it. Because it was too horrible to imagine. Because your husband and your sister betraying you is the kind of thing that only happens in movies, except when it doesn't." She squeezed my hands. "The question now is, what do you want to do about it?" I wiped my eyes with the tissue she handed me. "I don't know. I can't think straight." "Do you want to confront them?" "Yes." "No. I don't know." I felt lost, unmoored. Part of me wants to scream at them. Part of me wants to pretend I never saw anything. Part of me just wants to disappear. Grace nodded slowly. "Those are all normal reactions. But Maggie, you can't pretend this away. And you can't let them keep making a fool of you in your own home." "I know." My voice was barely a whisper. "Here's what I think," Grace said carefully. "Before you confront them, you need to be sure. You need to know exactly what you're dealing with. Right now, you have clothes in a closet. That's damning, yes, but they could try to explain it away. You need more. More. What more could there be? Evidence. Proof. Watch them, Maggie. Pay attention. See what else you notice now that your eyes are open. And when you have enough, when you're absolutely certain, then you decide how to handle it." I hated the idea of playing detective in my own home, of spying on my husband and sister. But Grace was right. I needed to be sure. I needed to know the full truth before I blew up my entire life. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll watch. I'll wait. And I'll be here," Grace promised. "Every step of the way. You're not alone in this." But as she hugged me goodbye and I watched her walk back to her house, I'd never felt more alone in my entire life. Bob came home at 3 o'clock, his cheeks flushed from the sun and exercise. "Great game today," he said, kissing my cheek like he always did. "Shot an 87. I smiled and asked about his game, and my voice sounded almost normal. Linda came home an hour later, breezing through the door with shopping bags and stories about her lunch with her friend. I made dinner, pot roast with potatoes and carrots, one of Bob's favorites. We ate together at the kitchen table, the 3 of us, making small talk about the weather and the news and nothing that mattered. And all the while I watched them. Really watched them. The way Bob's eyes followed Linda when she got up to refill her water glass. The way Linda's hand brushed Bob's shoulder when she walked past his chair. The secret smile they shared over dessert when they thought I was looking at my plate. I saw it all now. It had been there the whole time, hidden in plain sight, and I'd been too trusting, too comfortable, too foolish to see it. But I saw it now, and I would keep watching. Because Grace was right. I needed to know everything before I decided what to do next. That night, I lay in bed next to my husband of 42 years, listening to him breathe in the darkness. He fell asleep quickly, like he always did, while I stared at the ceiling and wondered how long this had been going on. 6 months. Since Linda moved in. Or longer. Had it started before, during her visits over the years? Had I been blind to this for years instead of months? The questions circled in my mind like vultures, and I didn't sleep at all. The next few days were the hardest of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal while my entire world had cracked down the middle. I smiled and cooked and made conversation, all while watching the two people I loved most betray me right in front of my eyes. Grace checked on me every day. She'd text me in the morning, "How are you holding up?" and call me in the afternoon when she knew Bob and Linda would be out. She was my lifeline, the only person who knew what I was going through. "You're stronger than you think," she told me on Wednesday afternoon. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you are." I wanted to believe her, but mostly I just felt broken. I started noticing patterns I'd been blind to before. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, Bob would announce he was going for a walk. "Need to keep the doctor happy," he'd say with a grin. He'd be gone for exactly an hour. Like clockwork. On those same evenings, Linda would suddenly remember she had errands to run. "Just need to pick up a few things from the drugstore," she'd say, grabbing her purse. She'd leave 5 minutes after Bob and return 5 minutes before him. They thought I was stupid. They thought I didn't notice. On Thursday evening, I decided to find out where they were going. When Bob announced his walk, I waited for Linda to make her excuse. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, she was heading for the door. "I'm coming with you," I said suddenly. Linda froze, her hand on the doorknob. "What?" "To the drugstore. I need some things too." I grabbed my sweater from the hook. "It'll be nice to have company." I watched the panic flash across her face before she covered it with a smile. "Oh, actually, I just remembered. I'm meeting my friend Sarah. Girl talk, you know, maybe another time?" "Sure," I said sweetly. "Another time." She practically ran out the door. I counted to 30, then grabbed my car keys and followed. I kept my distance, staying several cars behind. Linda didn't go to the drugstore. She didn't go anywhere near the shopping district. Instead, she drove to Riverside Park, the large wooded park on the east side of town. I parked far enough away that she wouldn't notice my car and watched as she walked down one of the trails. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I waited 5 minutes, then followed on foot. The evening sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the path. I stayed back, moving carefully, my feet silent on the dirt trail. Ahead I could see Linda's blue jacket through the trees. Then she stopped. And I saw why. Bob was there, waiting on a bench by the pond. When he saw Linda, his whole face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. She walked to him and he stood, pulling her into his arms. Not a friendly hug, not a familial embrace. This was something else entirely. They held each other for a long moment, and then Bob pulled back and cupped Linda's face in his hands. He said something I couldn't hear, and she laughed. That same musical laugh I used to love hearing. Then he kissed her. Not a peck on the cheek, not a brotherly kiss. He kissed her the way a man kisses a woman he loves, deep and tender and full of passion. Her arms went around his neck and she kissed him back. I stood there, hidden behind a large oak tree, watching my husband kiss my sister, watching them hold each other like lovers, watching my entire life turn into a lie. I should have felt rage. I should have stormed over there and screamed at them. But instead, I felt nothing. Just a vast, empty coldness spreading through my chest like ice. I turned and walked back to my car on numb legs. I drove home carefully, mechanically, my mind blank. I parked in the driveway and walked into my empty house. Then I went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and finally let myself feel it. The grief hit me like a tidal wave. I collapsed on the floor and sobbed until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen. I cried for my marriage, for my trust, for the sister I thought I knew. I cried for the naive woman I'd been just days ago, the one who thought she was safe and loved. I don't know how long I stayed there on the floor. Eventually, the tears stopped because there were no more left. I felt hollowed out, scraped clean, empty. I heard the front door open downstairs. Bob's voice calling out, "Maggie, I'm back." I stood up, washed my face in the bathroom sink, and looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red and puffy, my face blotchy. I looked like someone had died. In a way, someone had. The old Maggie, the trusting, naive Maggie, was gone. And I didn't know who was left in her place. I went downstairs. Bob was in the kitchen, pouring himself a glass of water. He looked relaxed, happy even. The walk had done him good. Apparently. "You okay?" he asked, noticing my face. "You look like you've been crying." "Allergies," I said. "They've been bad today." He nodded, already losing interest. "I'm going to take a shower before dinner." Linda came home 20 minutes later, also glowing and relaxed. She hummed as she set her purse down, and I realized with a sick jolt that she'd bought real items from the drugstore. Insurance, in case I checked. That night at dinner, I watched them again. Really watched. The secret glances, the coded language, the way Bob's foot touched Linda's under the table, the way she blushed and looked away. They'd gotten comfortable, sloppy. They thought they were safe. After dinner, while Bob was in his study and Linda was in her room, I called Grace. "I saw them," I said without preamble. "At the park. They were kissing." Grace was silent for a moment.
"Oh, honey, I'm so sorry."
"How long do you think this has been going on? Does it matter?" Grace asked gently. "Whether it's been 6 months or 6 years, the betrayal is the same." She was right. But I couldn't stop wondering. How many of our anniversaries had he been thinking of her? How many family dinners had she sat across from me, smiling, while carrying on with my husband? "What are you going to do?" Grace asked. "I don't know yet, but I need to think it through. I need to do this right. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. You know that, right?" "I know. Thank you, Grace." That weekend, our son Michael and his wife Jessica came for Sunday dinner. It was a monthly tradition we'd maintained since Michael moved 2 hours away for his job. Our daughter Claire was supposed to come too, but she called to say she was stuck at work. Claire was a lawyer in the city, always busy, always working. I made my usual spread: roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, apple pie for dessert. Michael hugged me when he arrived, and I held on a little longer than usual. "You okay, Mom?" he asked, pulling back to look at me. "Of course, sweetheart. Just happy to see you." Dinner was torture. We sat around the table, me, Bob, Linda, Michael, and Jessica, and played happy family. Bob told stories about his golf game. Linda talked about the boutique. Michael shared news about his latest project at work. And I smiled and nodded and passed the potatoes, all while dying inside. I watched Michael laugh at something Bob said, saw the easy affection between father and son, and thought about how destroyed he would be when he learned the truth. Michael idolized his father. They'd always been close, bonded over sports and tools and guy stuff I never quite understood. And Claire, serious, ambitious Claire, she'd always looked up to Linda. "Aunt Linda is so cool," she used to say as a teenager. "She's not afraid to take risks." What would I tell them? How would I explain that their father and their aunt had been carrying on an affair right under my nose? After dinner, while Jessica helped me clear the dishes, she touched my arm. "Maggie, are you sure you're all right? You seem distant." I forced a smile. "Just tired, honey. Getting old, you know." She squeezed my hand. "If you ever need to talk about anything, I'm here. You know that, right? Sweet Jessica." She'd always been perceptive. I wondered if she'd noticed something off between Bob and Linda, if she'd seen what I'd been blind to. After they left, I felt more alone than ever. I stood at the sink washing the last of the dishes, and Bob came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Great dinner," he said, kissing my neck. "You outdid yourself." Once, that gesture would have made me feel loved. Now it made my skin crawl. I stood rigid in his embrace, my hands frozen in the soapy water. "You okay?" he asked, sensing my tension. "Fine," I said. "Just tired." He let me go, and I heard him walk away. I braced my hands on the edge of the sink and took deep, steady breaths. I couldn't keep pretending. Grace was right. I needed a plan. I needed to decide what I wanted and how to get it. That night, after Bob fell asleep, I crept downstairs and opened my laptop. I started researching divorce lawyers. I read about division of assets, about what I'd be entitled to after 42 years of marriage. I made notes in a small notebook I kept hidden in my desk drawer. I was done being blind, done being the fool, done letting them use my kindness and trust against me. They wanted to destroy my life. Fine. But I wasn't going down without a fight. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I barely recognized. I was methodical, careful, strategic. I documented everything in my hidden notebook. Dates, times, behaviors. I took photos of Bob's belongings in Linda's closet with my phone, making sure to timestamp them. Grace helped me think through every detail. We'd meet for coffee at a diner across town where no one knew us, spreading papers across the table like generals planning a campaign. You need to protect yourself financially, Grace said one afternoon, stirring her coffee. Do you know where all your accounts are? Your assets. I did. 42 years of managing a household had made me organized. I had copies of everything. Bank statements, investment accounts, the deed to the house, Bob's pension information. I'd always been the one who handled our finances while Bob focused on his career. Good, Grace nodded. That's good. What about evidence? Do you have enough? I showed her the photos on my phone, Bob's clothes hidden in Linda's closet. Screenshots of their suspiciously aligned evening, errands on my calendar. I'd even started noting little things. The way they'd both come home with windblown hair on the same evenings, how they'd both suddenly developed a taste for the same obscure coffee blend. The problem is, I said quietly, I don't have direct proof. No texts, no emails. They're being careful. Have you checked Bob's phone? I shook my head. He keeps it with him constantly. And I don't know his passcode. Grace tapped her fingers on the table, thinking, what about credit cards? Maybe there's a pattern there. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, things that don't add up. That evening, while Bob was in the shower, I went through our credit card statements online. Nothing obvious jumped out at first. Then I noticed something strange. Every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 3 months, there was a charge at Riverside Park's cafe, always for 2 coffees and 2 pastries. Always at the same time, around 7:30 in the evening. Bob had told me he walked alone. He'd never mentioned stopping for coffee, and certainly not buying coffee for 2. I took screenshots and added them to my evidence folder. The next Tuesday, I decided to see for myself. When Bob left for his walk, I gave him a head start, then drove to Riverside Park. I parked where I could see the cafe entrance and waited. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Bob appeared. He bought 2 coffees and 2 croissants, then carried them to the same bench by the pond where I'd seen them kiss. 5 minutes after that, Linda arrived. She sat next to him, and he handed her a coffee. They sat close, his arm around her shoulders, talking and laughing like they had all the time in the world. I took photos. My hands shook, but I forced myself to be steady. Click, click, click. They stayed for 45 minutes, then walked to the parking lot together. At Linda's car, Bob pulled her close and kissed her again. Not a quick peck. A real kiss, the kind that makes your toes curl. I took more photos, feeling sick but determined. That night, I couldn't eat dinner. I pushed food around my plate while Bob talked about his day and Linda chatted about a difficult customer at the boutique. They were so comfortable in their deception, so casual about destroying my life. Maggie, you've barely touched your food, Linda said, her voice full of false concern. Are you feeling all right? I'm fine, I said, meeting her eyes. Just not very hungry. After dinner, I called Claire. I needed to hear my daughter's voice, needed to remember why I had to be strong. Mom, this is a nice surprise, Claire said. I could hear the bustle of her office in the background. What's up? Just wanted to say hello. See how busy as always. I've got a big case coming up. But it's good, keeps me sharp. She paused. You sound tired, Mom. Is everything okay? I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to cry and rage and ask her what I should do. But Claire had enough on her plate, and this wasn't something to discuss over the phone. Everything's fine, sweetheart. I just miss you. I miss you too. Hey? Is Aunt Linda still staying with you guys? My stomach clenched. Yes. Why, just wondering. It's been a while, hasn't it? She must have saved up enough for her own place by now. She's family. I said the words tasting bitter. She can stay as long as she needs. You're too generous, Mom. You always have been. Claire's voice softened. Make sure you're taking care of yourself too, okay? Not just everyone else. If only she knew how prophetic those words were. That weekend, Grace came over while Bob was at his golf game and Linda was at work. We sat in my kitchen with my notebook and all my evidence spread across the table. You have enough, Grace said finally. More than enough. The question is, what do you want to do with it? I'd been thinking about this constantly. At night, lying next to Bob. During the day, watching them pretend. In the quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts. I want them to face what they've done, I said slowly. I want them to stop hiding. Stop lying. I want everyone to know the truth. You want to confront them. More than that. An idea had been forming in my mind, crystallizing over the past few days. I want to do it publicly, in front of witnesses, so they can't deny it, can't twist it, can't make me feel like I'm crazy or imagining things. Grace raised her eyebrows. What did you have in mind? I took a deep breath. A family dinner. Here, I'll invite Michael and Jessica, and I'll call Claire and insist she comes too. I'll make it seem like a special occasion. Maybe say I want to celebrate Bob's birthday early or something. And then, when everyone is here, I'll lay it all out. That's bold, Grace said. That's really bold. Are you sure? Was I sure? My heart was pounding just thinking about it. But yes, I was sure. I was tired of being quiet, tired of pretending, tired of protecting people who'd never protected me. I'm sure, I said firmly. They've been living in my house, eating my food, sleeping under my roof while carrying on this affair. They've made me look like a fool. Well, no more. If they want to be together so badly, they can face the consequences. Grace reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then I'm with you, every step of the way. When do you want to do this? Next Saturday. That gives me a week to prepare. And I'm invited, right? As moral support. I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. I wouldn't do it without you. Over the next few days, I set everything in motion. I called Michael and invited him and Jessica for dinner. Just a family gathering, I said. It's been too long since we've all been together. Claire was harder to convince. Mom, I've got so much work. Can we do it another weekend? Please, sweetheart, I said, and I didn't have to fake the emotion in my voice. It's important to me. I need you here. Something in my tone must have gotten through to her. Okay, she said finally. I'll be there. But I might have to leave early if I get an urgent call. That's fine. Just please come. Bob was surprised when I told him about the dinner. What's the occasion? Do we need an occasion to have our family together? I kept my voice light. I just thought it would be nice. He shrugged. Sure. Sounds good. Linda seemed nervous when I mentioned it. Both kids will be here, and Grace too. Is that a problem? No, of course not. I might go out that evening. Nonsense, I said firmly. Your family too, Linda, you should be here. I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or fear. But she nodded. If you're sure. The week crawled by. I cooked and cleaned and prepared, all while maintaining my mask of normalcy. Bob and Linda continued their Tuesday and Thursday errands. They continued their secret touches and hidden glances. They had no idea what was coming. Grace checked on me every day. How are you holding up? I'm okay, I said, and surprisingly I was. Now that I had a plan, now that I knew the end was in sight, I felt stronger, more focused. The grief was still there, raw and deep, but underneath it was something else. A core of steel I didn't know I had. On Friday night, the evening before the dinner, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed going over everything in my mind, what I would say, how I would say it, what their reactions might be. Bob snored softly beside me, oblivious. I looked at his face in the dim light from the street lamp outside our window. This man I'd loved for over 4 decades. This man I'd built a life with, raised children with, grown old with. And he'd thrown it all away for my sister. I felt the tears coming and let them fall silently. I let myself grieve one last time for what I'd lost, for who I'd been, for the innocent trust that had been shattered beyond repair. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the truth would come out. Tomorrow, I would stop being the victim and start taking control of my life. But tonight, I let myself be sad. Just one more night. Saturday arrived with perfect autumn weather, crisp and clear. The kind of day that makes you believe in new beginnings. I woke early and went through my routine like I was preparing for battle. Because in a way I was. I dressed carefully in a navy blue dress that Bob had always said made me look elegant. I wanted to look strong, composed, in control. I did my hair and put on makeup, studying myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me had changed. There was a hardness around my eyes that hadn't been there 3 weeks ago, a set to my jaw that spoke of determination rather than resignation. Downstairs, I started cooking. I made all of Bob's favorites: prime rib, scalloped potatoes, roasted vegetables, homemade rolls. For dessert, his mother's apple pie recipe. If this was going to be our last meal as a family, it would be a good one. Linda came into the kitchen around 10, still in her bathrobe. It smells amazing in here. What's all this? Just dinner, I said, not looking up from the potatoes I was peeling. I wanted everything to be special. Can I help? No, thank you. I've got it under control. She lingered for a moment, and I could feel her watching me. Maggie, is everything okay? You've seemed different this week. I set down my peeler and turned to face her, really looked at her. My baby sister, 4 years younger, who I'd protected our whole lives, who I'd comforted through breakups and divorces, who I'd welcomed into my home without a second thought. Everything's fine, I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes, just looking forward to having everyone together. She nodded slowly, not quite convinced, and retreated upstairs. Bob spent the morning puttering around the garage. He then showering and dressing. He seemed relaxed, happy even. Why wouldn't he be? He had everything. A wife who cooked and cleaned and took care of him, and a mistress living right under the same roof. He'd been having his cake and eating it too for months. Well, that was about to end. Grace arrived at 4 o'clock, bringing a bottle of wine and her steady presence. She hugged me in the kitchen, and I held on tight. You ready for this? She whispered. As ready as I'll ever be. I'm so proud of you, Maggie. You're the strongest person I know. I didn't feel strong. I felt terrified. But I also felt determined, and maybe that was enough. Michael and Jessica arrived at 5:30. Michael hugged me, and I breathed in the familiar scent of his cologne, the same brand Bob wore. My boy, my firstborn, who had no idea his world was about to implode. Something smells incredible, Mom, he said, grinning. You went all out. Only the best for my family, I said, and my voice only shook a little. Claire rushed in at 5:45, slightly breathless and apologetic. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was murder. She hugged me, and I held her close, memorizing the moment. My daughter, my fierce, brilliant girl. You made it. That's all that matters. We gathered in the living room for drinks before dinner. Bob poured scotch for himself and Michael. The women had wine. Everyone chatted and laughed, and I floated through it all like I was watching from outside my body. Linda was quiet, I noticed. She sat on the edge of her chair, barely touching her wine. She kept glancing at Bob, and then at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle. At 6:30, I announced dinner was ready. We all moved to the dining room, and I'd set the table with our good china, the wedding china we only used on special occasions. White with gold trim, delicate and beautiful. I'd placed name cards at each seat, something I'd never done before. Fancy, Claire teased, picking up her card. What's the occasion? Just wanted to make tonight special, I said. I'd seated Bob at one end of the table, myself at the other. Linda was on Bob's right, with Michael and Jessica across from her. Claire sat on my right with Grace beside her. The seating wasn't accidental. I wanted Bob and Linda where I could see them clearly. I wanted my children close. I brought out the food, and everyone exclaimed over how wonderful everything looked. We served ourselves, passing dishes around the table. Bob carved the prime rib, playing the role of patriarch. For a few minutes, there was just the clatter of silverware and appreciative murmurs. This is delicious, Mom, Michael said. Seriously, you outdid yourself. It really is wonderful. Jessica agreed. You're such an amazing cook. I smiled and thanked them, barely tasting my own food. My stomach was in knots. We ate and talked. Claire told stories about her latest case. Michael shared news about a promotion he was up for at work. Jessica talked about her sister's upcoming wedding. Normal family conversation. The kind we'd had 100 times before. I let it go on for a while. Let them eat, let them relax. Under the table, Grace found my hand and squeezed it. I squeezed back. Finally, as we were finishing the main course, I set down my fork. The small sound seemed loud in the sudden quiet. I'm so glad you could all be here tonight, I said. My voice was steady, calm. There's something I need to talk to you about. Something important, Michael smiled. Are you and Dad planning a big trip or something? Finally going to take that cruise you've been talking about? No, sweetheart. Nothing like that. I looked at Bob, then at Linda. They both looked confused, uncertain. Good. I wanted you all here because I've discovered something over the past few weeks. Something that's changed everything. And I needed you, my children, my best friend, to hear the truth. Claire's expression shifted from curious to concerned. Mum, what's going on? I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment everything changed. 3 weeks ago, I found your father's clothes hidden in Linda's room. His cardigan, his watch, his reading glasses. The things he'd claimed were lost or misplaced. The table went silent. Everyone stared at me. Bob's face had gone pale. Linda's fork clattered to her plate. Mom, Michael started. But I held up my hand. I'm not finished. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. After I found those items, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. And I saw things I'd been blind to before, so I watched. I documented. I took photos. Maggie, I can explain. Bob began, but I cut him off. Can you? Can you explain why you and Linda meet at Riverside Park every Tuesday and Thursday evening? Can you explain this? I pulled up the photos on my phone and passed it to Claire. She looked at the screen and I watched the color drain from her face. Oh my God. What is it? Michael took the phone from her. His face went from confused to shocked to furious in the space of seconds. Aunt Linda, what the hell? Jessica looked over his shoulder and gasped. Grace sat quietly beside me, her presence a solid anchor. Those are photos of your father and your aunt, I said calmly. Kissing at Riverside Park. And there are more. Weeks' worth of documentation. Of secret meetings, of lies, of betrayal. Bob stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Maggie? This isn't. We didn't mean for this to happen. Didn't mean for it to happen. My voice rose for the first time. Or didn't mean for me to find out. Which is it? Bob, Linda was crying, her face in her hands. Maggie, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear we tried to stop. We tried. How long? Claire's voice was cold hard. I'd never heard her sound like that. How long has this been going on? Linda and Bob looked at each other. The guilty look that passed between them told me everything I needed to know. Since before I moved in, Linda whispered. It started last Christmas. At your party, Maggie. Bob and I, we talked that night, and we realized we had feelings for each other. We tried to ignore it, we really did. But when David left me, and I needed somewhere to go, Bob suggested I stay here. And we thought. You thought you'd continue your affair right under my nose, I finished. In my house? In my home. Dad, how could you? Michael was standing now too, his fists clenched. Mum has been nothing but good to you. She stood by you for 42 years. And you repay her like this? Michael, you don't understand. Bob started. Michael shouted. Make me understand how you could do this to Mom. How you could betray her with her own sister. I love her, Bob said quietly. I love Linda. I didn't plan it, I didn't want it. But I fell in love with her. The words hung in the air like poison. I watched my husband of 42 years, stand there and declare his love for my sister. In front of our children, in front of me, and something inside me that had been cracking for weeks finally shattered completely. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I love her. Echoed in the silence like a death knell. Then Claire stood up, her chair scraping loudly. Get out. Bob looked at her, startled. Claire. I said, get out. Both of you. Claire's voice was shaking with fury. Get out of this house right now. Sweetheart, please, let me explain. Bob moved toward her, but she backed away like he was contaminated. Don't you dare call me that. Don't you dare. Tears were streaming down Claire's face. You cheated on Mom. With Aunt Linda. In Mom's own house. There's nothing to explain. Claire's right, Michael said. His voice was deadly quiet, which was somehow worse than shouting. You need to leave, Dad. Now. Linda was sobbing openly now. Michael, please. I know this is awful. I know we've hurt everyone, but we love each other. Doesn't that count for something? Love. Jessica spoke up for the first time, her usually gentle voice hard. You call this love? Love doesn't sneak around. Love doesn't lie and betray. What you two have done is selfish and cruel, and you've destroyed this family. Bob's face was red. You're all acting like we're monsters. We're human. We made mistakes. But we can't help how we feel. You can help what you do about it, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. I'd been sitting still, watching it all unfold. But now I stood up. You could have told me the truth. You could have been honest. You could have ended our marriage before starting a new relationship. But instead, you chose to lie. You chose to humiliate me in my own home. You made me look like a fool. I never wanted you to feel like a fool, Bob said, and he actually looked pained. Maggie, you've been a wonderful person. This isn't about you. It's about us, about what Linda and I have. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I don't want to hear about your feelings, about your connection, about whatever justifications you've been telling yourselves. I want you to leave my house. Your house. Bob frowned. Maggie, this is our house. I've lived here for 38 years. And now you're going to live somewhere else. I kept my voice steady. I've already consulted with a lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. This house is in my name. My parents left me the down payment, remember? You'll get your share of our assets, but you won't be living here anymore. Bob looked genuinely shocked. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Maggie, please. Linda stood up. Reaching, we talk about this. Can't we work something out? I looked at my sister, really looked at her. At her red, tear-stained face. At her trembling hands. At the guilt and fear in her eyes, and I felt nothing. The love I'd had for her. The bond of sisterhood that had sustained us through our parents' deaths and her divorces and all the ups and downs of life. It was gone. Burned away by betrayal. There's nothing to work out, Linda. You made your choice when you started this affair. You chose him over me, over our relationship, over everything we've been to each other our whole lives. I didn't choose him over you. I fell in love. Can't you understand that? Haven't you ever felt something so powerful you couldn't control it? Yes, I said quietly. I felt that way about Bob. 42 years ago, I fell in love with him. I married him. I built a life with him. I stayed faithful to him through good times and bad, through sickness and health, through boring routine and difficult challenges. That's what love is, Linda. Not some overwhelming feeling you can't control, but a choice you make every single day. Grace stood up and put her arm around me. I think Maggie's been clear. Grace, stay out of this. Bob snapped. This is family business. I am family. Grace shot back. I've been Maggie's friend for 20 years. I've been there for her through more than you apparently have. So, yes, I'm family, and I'm telling you to get out. Michael walked to the front door and opened it. Dad, Aunt Linda, leave. Now. Bob looked around the table at all of us, his children glaring at him with disappointment and rage, Grace standing protective at my side, Jessica looking at him with disgust. He seemed to realize that he'd lost, that there was no talking his way out of this, no charm or excuse that would make this okay. He said finally, I'll leave. But Maggie, this isn't over. We need to discuss logistics, finances, the divorce. My lawyer will be in touch, I said. You'll get everything you're legally entitled to. But I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. All communication goes through lawyers from now on. That's ridiculous. After 42 years, we can't even have a conversation. No, I said simply. We can't. Linda grabbed her purse from the hallway. She was still crying. Please. I know you hate me right now, but I'm still your sister. We're still family. No, I said again. We're not. You stopped being my sister the day you started sleeping with my husband. Family doesn't do what you've done. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I never stopped loving you. Even while this was happening, I still loved you. Then you don't know what love is. Bob put his hand on Linda's back, guiding her toward the door. The gesture, protective, intimate, possessive, made my stomach turn. How many times had he touched me that way? How many of those touches had been real, and how many had been lies? At the door. I'm sorry. Maggie, for what it's worth, I really am sorry. It's not worth much, I said. Goodbye, Bob. They left. Michael closed the door behind them with a finality that echoed through the house. For a long moment, we all just stood there. Then Claire came to me and wrapped her arms around me. I sobbed into my daughter's shoulder while she held me tight. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Michael joined the embrace, and then Jessica, and even Grace, until I was surrounded by the people who really loved me. The people who would never betray me. I can't believe he did this, Michael said, his voice thick. I can't believe Dad would do something so horrible. I should have seen it, Claire said. At Sunday dinners there were signs, little things. I should have noticed. It's not your fault. I said, pulling back to look at both my children. Neither of you could have known. I lived with them every day and I didn't see it. They were careful. They made sure to hide it. How long have you known? Michael asked. 3 weeks. Since I found Bob's things in Linda's room. 3 weeks. Claire looked stricken. Mum, you went through this alone for 3 weeks. I wasn't alone. Grace was with me. I smiled at my friend through my tears. She helped me plan all of this, helped me be strong enough to face it. Why didn't you just confront them immediately? Michael asked. Why wait? Why go through all this? Because I needed to be sure, I said. I needed evidence. I needed to know I wasn't crazy or paranoid or jumping to conclusions. And I needed you both here, needed witnesses, so they couldn't deny it or gaslight me or make me question my own reality. Jessica squeezed my hand. You're incredibly brave, Maggie. I don't think I could have done what you just did. I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. But you did it anyway, Grace said. That's what courage is. We moved back to the dining room, but no one wanted to eat. The beautiful meal I'd prepared sat cooling on the table, ruined like everything else. Claire started clearing plates while Michael poured everyone generous glasses of wine. What happens now? Claire asked. Practically, I mean. Where will Dad go? What about your finances? I've already talked to a divorce lawyer, I said. The house is mine. My inheritance paid for most of it. Our other assets will be split. Bob has his pension and his savings. He'll be fine.
Do you know where he'll go?
Michael asked. I shook my head. I don't care. That's not my problem anymore. And Aunt Linda, also not my problem. Claire paced the kitchen, her lawyer mind working. Mom, you need to make sure you're protected. Change the locks tomorrow. Change passwords on all your accounts. Make sure Dad doesn't have access to anything he shouldn't. I will. I've already started transferring money to a separate account. Grace helped me set that up last week. Good. Claire nodded approvingly. And you need to document everything. Keep a record of this conversation, of what happened tonight. It might be useful in the divorce proceedings. I will. Michael was quiet, staring into his wine glass. Finally, he looked up at me. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to go through this. I'm sorry Dad turned out to be. I don't even know what to call him. A cheater, Jessica supplied. A liar. A betrayer. All of those things. I agreed. But also still your father. And I don't want this to destroy your relationship with him, Michael. You and Claire can still have a relationship with Bob if you want to. I don't want to, Claire said immediately. I don't know if I can ever look at him the same way again. Me neither, Michael said. How am I supposed to respect him after this? How am I supposed to have a relationship with someone who hurt you so badly? I don't know, I said honestly. That's something you'll have to figure out for yourselves, but don't make any permanent decisions tonight. You're angry and hurt. Are you defending him? Claire asked incredulously. No, never. But he's still your father, and that relationship is separate from his relationship with me. I don't want my pain to dictate your choices. Grace smiled at me. Even now you're thinking of everyone else. Maggie, it's okay to be selfish sometimes. It's okay to want your kids to be angry on your behalf. I do want that, I admitted. But I also want them to have the freedom to make their own decisions without feeling guilty about it. We talked late into the night. Claire and Jessica helped me clean up the dining room. Michael changed the locks on the doors. He'd brought a set from the hardware store. Prepared for this possibility, they insisted on staying the night, not wanting to leave me alone. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Bob. Maggie, please. Can we talk? This doesn't have to be so ugly. I showed it to Claire, who immediately took the phone from me. Don't respond. Block his number. All communication through lawyers. Remember? She was right. I blocked Bob's number. Then I blocked Linda's too. That night I slept in my own bed for the first time in 3 weeks without Bob beside me. Claire slept in the guest room, Linda's former room, though I'd already stripped the bed and bagged up all her belongings. Michael and Jessica took the pull-out couch in the den, and for the first time since I'd found those clothes in the closet, I slept soundly. Not because the pain was gone, it wasn't, but because I'd taken control. I'd told the truth. I'd stood up for myself. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tomorrow would be the first day of my life as a single woman after 42 years of marriage. Tomorrow would be hard, but tonight I was free. The morning sun filtered through my bedroom window and for a moment I forgot. Then reality crashed back. Bob was gone. Linda was gone. My marriage was over. My family was broken. But I was still here. I got out of bed and looked at myself in the mirror. Same face, same silver hair, same lines around my eyes. But something was different. There was a strength in my expression I hadn't seen before. A clarity. Downstairs, I found Claire already up making coffee. She turned when she heard me and smiled softly. Morning. Mom, how'd you sleep? Better than I have in weeks, actually. She hugged me, and we stood there in the kitchen, just holding each other. Michael and Jessica emerged a few minutes later, rumpled but supportive. We're not leaving you today, Michael announced. We're going to help you with whatever you need. And they did. Michael changed all the passwords on our accounts, using Claire's lawyer knowledge to make sure everything was secure. Jessica helped me box up Bob's remaining belongings, his clothes from the closet, his toiletries from the bathroom, his books from the study. We worked methodically, removing all traces of him from the house. Linda's things were already bagged up. I'd done that in the middle of the night, unable to sleep, needing to purge her presence from my home. What do you want to do with all this? Michael asked, looking at the pile of boxes and bags in the garage. Put it on the curb, I said. Bob can come get it whenever he wants. He has a key to the garage. Well, he did. The old one anyway. Claire looked concerned. Mom, are you sure? Some of this stuff might be valuable in the divorce. You might want to. I don't want his things in my house, I said firmly. I don't care about the value. I just want it gone. So we put it all out front. Boxes and bags and garbage sacks full of a life that no longer existed. The neighbors probably thought we were having a yard sale. Grace came over mid-morning with groceries and her no-nonsense attitude. Okay, here's the plan. We're going to feed you. Make sure you eat actual food. Then we're going to make a list of everything you need to do. Lawyer appointments, financial stuff, practical matters. And then we're going to make another list of things that make you happy, because you need to remember that life isn't all legal proceedings and betrayal. Grace is right, Jessica said. You need to take care of yourself, Maggie. Not just handle the logistics. So we made lists. Claire, with her legal expertise, outlined every step of the divorce process. Michael researched financial advisors who could help me manage my assets. Grace added items like book club, garden, and that painting class you've always wanted to take. My phone rang around noon. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It's me, Linda's voice, small and scared. Please don't hang up. I should have. But I couldn't quite bring myself to. What do you want, Linda? I just really apologize. Not the stuff I said last night, but really tell you how sorry I am. Okay, I'm listening. She took a shaky breath. I know what we did was unforgivable. I know I betrayed you in the worst possible way. You took me in when I had nowhere to go, and I repaid you by having an affair with your husband in your own home. There's no excuse for that. None? You're right. There isn't. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to speak to me after this call. But I need you to know that I do love you. I always have. And I hate myself for what I've done to you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done it, I said simply. I know. That's what makes it so awful. I loved you and I betrayed you anyway. I chose my own happiness over your well-being. I'm selfish and terrible, and I've destroyed the most important relationship in my life. Silence stretched between us. Finally, I spoke. Linda, I hope you and Bob are very happy together. I mean that. Because you've both given up everything for this relationship. Your integrity, your family, your self-respect. Maggie. I have to go now. Don't call this number again. I hung up and blocked the number. Claire squeezed my shoulder. You okay? I think so. It's strange. I thought I'd feel angrier. But mostly I just feel empty, like there should be more emotion, but there isn't. That's normal, Grace said. The anger will come and go. So will the sadness. Grief isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong, some days you'll cry in the grocery store. It's all part of the process. Bob came for his things that afternoon. I watched from the window as he loaded boxes into his car, his movements slow and heavy. He looked up at the house once, maybe hoping I'd come out, but I stayed inside. There was nothing left to say. When he was gone, Michael asked, "Do you know where he's going?" I assume he's moving in with Linda. She has that apartment downtown. I shrugged. It doesn't matter. Over the next few weeks, I settled into a new routine. I met with my lawyer, a a sharp woman named Patricia who reminded me of Claire. We discussed asset division, the divorce timeline, what I could expect. It was all very businesslike, very practical. But Patricia was also kind. "You're handling this remarkably well," she said during one meeting. "A lot of my clients fall apart during this process." I fell apart privately, I told her. Now I'm putting myself back together. Claire came home most weekends, helping me navigate the legal complexities. Michael called every few days to check on me. They were both struggling with their feelings about Bob. Anger mixed with sadness mixed with confusion. Bob had tried to reach out to them, but they weren't ready yet. He sent me a long email, Claire told me one Saturday over coffee, explaining his feelings, asking for understanding. Like this is all some romantic tragedy instead of a betrayal. What did you say? Nothing yet. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything until you're ready. And if you're never ready, that's okay too. I started filling my days with things I'd let slide during my marriage. I joined Grace's book club, where I met women my age who had their own stories of survival and strength. I took that painting class Grace had mentioned. Turned out I was terrible at painting, but I enjoyed trying. I started volunteering at the library where I used to work, reading to children and organizing events. One afternoon, about 2 months after the dinner, I was shelving books when I saw them. Bob and Linda walking past the library window. They were holding hands, laughing about something. They looked happy. I waited for the knife twist of pain, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt nothing, maybe a little pity. They destroyed so much for this happiness. Their relationships with family, their integrity, their peace of mind. I hoped it was worth it, but I suspected it wouldn't be. Relationships built on betrayal rarely lasted. Grace found me at the window. "Yeah, I really am. Is that weird?" "Not weird. Healing." The divorce was finalized in early spring. 6 months after that terrible dinner, it was over. Bob got half our savings and his pension. I got the house, most of the investments, and my freedom. Patricia said I could have pushed for more, but I didn't want to. I just wanted it done. "You're officially single," Grace said, toasting me with champagne that evening. We were sitting on my back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Officially free," I corrected. "Any regrets?" I thought about it carefully. I regret the time I wasted on someone who didn't deserve it. I regret not seeing the signs sooner, but ending it. No regrets about that. What about Linda? Do you ever think about reaching out? Sometimes. Late at night, when I'm feeling nostalgic. But then I remember that the sister I'm missing doesn't exist anymore. She hasn't existed for a long time, maybe never did. I was in love with an idea of Linda, not the reality. That's very wise. Or very sad. I haven't decided which yet. Claire got engaged that summer. Her boyfriend David proposed on a beach vacation, and she was radiantly happy. But when she called to tell me, there was hesitation in her voice. "Mom, I need to ask you something." "Of course, sweetheart. It's about the wedding. About who to invite." She paused. "I don't want to invite Dad. After what he did to you, I can't stand the thought of him walking me down the aisle. But he's still my father, and part of me feels guilty for excluding him." My heart ached for her. "Claire, this is your wedding, your day. You invite whoever you want there. But what about you? Would it bother you if I invited him?" I thought about it honestly. It would be hard to see him, but I could handle it for your sake. However, this isn't about me. This is about what you want. What feels right to you. "I don't want him there," she said finally. "I keep trying to convince myself I should want him there, but I don't. Every time I think about my wedding, I think about him betraying you. I think about him choosing Aunt Linda over our family. And I don't want that energy at my wedding. Then don't invite him. And don't feel guilty about it. He's going to be hurt. Probably. But Claire, he made choices that led to consequences. This is one of them." She was quiet for a moment. "You've gotten really strong, Mom." "When did that happen?" "I think I was always strong. I just didn't know it yet. A year after the dinner, I was a different person. Not completely healed. I don't know if you ever completely heal from that kind of betrayal. But whole again. I'd built a life for myself that didn't revolve around being someone's wife or someone's sister. I traveled, taking a trip to Italy with Grace. We ate pasta and drank wine and laughed until our sides hurt. I redecorated the house, replacing furniture Bob had chosen with pieces I loved. I cut my hair shorter, Started wearing brighter colors, took up yoga, and slowly, carefully, I started dating again. Nothing serious. Just coffee dates and dinner conversations with men I met through friends or the book club. It felt strange at first, like I was betraying my marriage. Then I remembered that Bob had betrayed it first, and I let myself enjoy the attention. One evening I was having dinner with a man named Thomas, a retired teacher, widowed 5 years ago, kind eyes and a gentle sense of humor. We were laughing about something when I looked up and saw Bob across the restaurant. He was alone, looking older and tired. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw something in his face. Regret, maybe. Or just sadness. I smiled politely and returned to my conversation with Thomas. Bob's expression, his feelings, his regrets, they weren't my problem anymore. After dinner, Thomas walked me to my car. I had a lovely time tonight. Maggie, so did I. Would you like to do this again? I would, I said, and I meant it. Driving home, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the pain, the slow rebuilding of my life. I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, trusting, naive, living in a comfortable illusion. And the woman I was now, stronger, wiser, more myself than I'd ever been. I didn't miss Bob. I didn't miss the life we'd had. What I missed was the security of not knowing, the comfort of ignorance. But I wouldn't trade knowledge for comfort anymore. When I got home, the house was dark and quiet. My house, my sanctuary. I turned on the lights and put on music and poured myself a glass of wine. Grace was coming over later to watch a movie. Michael was calling tomorrow to tell me about his promotion. Claire was coming for the weekend to show me wedding dress options. My life was full. Different than it had been, but full. I'd survived the worst betrayal imaginable. I'd faced it head on, exposed it, and walked away with my dignity intact. And more than that, I'd discovered that I didn't need someone else to complete me. I was complete on my own. Standing in my kitchen, sipping wine and listening to music, I realized something profound. I was happy. Not pretend happy, not comfortable, but numb happy. Really, genuinely happy. Bob and Linda had tried to destroy me. They'd taken my trust, my family, my sense of security. But they hadn't taken me. The core of who I was, strong, capable, deserving of love and respect, that was still intact. I raised my glass in a silent toast to endings and beginnings, to betrayal and survival, to the woman I'd been and the woman I'd become. To me,